Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to another one of our Genuine Origin webinars. Today, we're going to be talking about Volcafe Way, which a lot of you have probably talked to some of us about. We will also be having, as usual, some of our Q&A and polls, so please stay tuned for those. Feel free to throw a question into the chat. And so first things first, let's get to some introductions. This may not be a surprise at this point. Hello, I am Jen Hurd. I am the West Coast Sales Manager for Genuine Origin, based in Portland, Oregon, drinking a little of our Uganda Rwenzori Natural this morning. So we're just gonna go around the room and do intros. So Rob, on my screen, you're next.
Hey everyone, Rob Stalkow, Digital Manager at Genuine Origin, drinking Wash Yerga from Mordekov.
Yum.
Nice
All
to be
right.
here.
Thank you for joining us. And a huge thank you as well to Carlos Ortiz, who is also joining us. Carlos, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Jen. This is Carlos. I'm here in Costa Rica right now. And at the moment, I'm running the entire Volcafe Way service platform across the globe. So it's a pleasure to be with you guys here, and hope we have a good fun time and show some good experiences.
Yeah, as always, we really appreciate our team for taking the time to pull all this info together. We also appreciate all of you who take the time to join us. I know we've had some really good conversations following these webinars with the roasters we work with. So we hope to continue that. And yeah, please, there's a chat function and a Q&A function at the bottom. So don't hesitate to throw those up and we'll get to them throughout the presentation. So Carlos, how'd we get here?
How we get here? That's a good question.
How did Volcafe, like what was the motivation behind Volcafe Way?
That's a good question, and
not an existential question. Sorry.
Not a what?
Not an existential question.
No, not at all. So back in the day, Jen and everybody, we started working with what we call the Farmer Support Center. And this Farmer Support Center in late 1990s was focused on providing technical assistance towards social and environmental practices for coffee growers around the world. Our main intention back in the day was to help producers to get certified so that we could also promote their coffee as sustainable and then sell it through the sustainability supply chain channel. After some years of doing that, we realized that then specialty coffees were starting to boom and starting to be a trend in the market. And also we started seeing that more roasters needed to do or wanted to do their tailor-made solutions that were basically following their specific indicators. Some years after that, we said, well, you know, we've had already this 20 plus years experience on the field, and we see and we understand the social and environmental aspects of sustainability. But there might be a missing link. There might be a service that we're not providing fully, because a lot of the farmers and families that we're visiting are improving on their social and environmental scorecard, yes, but their overall profitability and economic sustainability is not really advancing and progressing as strong as they could. So there's where Volcafe Way began late 2014 as an idea of expanding the service platform so that we could be co-investing on sustainable supply chains, but focusing a little bit more on the profitability side of things. So that's a glimpse of the background of what has happened throughout the years, and we're already having the implementation in 5 years already in 10 countries across the globe. Now, a lot of you might be asking, okay, what is the difference between Volcafe Way and UTS or Rainforest or 4C or all those programs? First, we are not a certification program. So Volcafe Way is not a certification of sustainability in any sense. It's our internal standard on how we do things and how we provide the services to coffee growers. Since we also understand that there's a lot of brand risk right now, and more so with all these reports that have been having or have been discussed in the industry recently. We also want to tell you that if we're procuring or if we're helping a coffee grower be part of Volcafe Way, we're also covering the most common critical criteria for social and for environmental practices. So if a coffee grower is part of Volcafe Way supply chain, we're still helping them on not polluting the rivers or paying the minimum wages or using the personal protective equipment or even disencouraging the child labor and fostering the child education. So all of those aspects, which would be considered as the critical criteria on other certification programs, we also are assessing them and trying to address them as part of our sustainability performance scorecard. So that's an important feature that it's good for you guys to know about what we are doing in the field. Now, that's a little bit of what makes us alike with any other tailor-made program of sustainability or even the ones that have been in the industry for a longer while. What makes us different, and I will take you back to the books and back to the school, is going to be based on this importance of the plant physiology and the importance of what new branches do in our coffee plantation. So most of you have been having the blessing to go to a coffee farm, and there you might have seen that coffee plants produce only on the new part of the branch. So where you have already produced coffee, in the next year, you won't find coffee, never again. So this is critical to understand how to increase the profitability of a coffee family, because the more you can help the producer to understand that and see that here where you produced last year, there's no coffee, here where you produced the year before, there's no coffee, and then the coffee is getting focused only on the outermost parts of the plantation. This is key and crucial to do a proper farm management. A more realistic example that we have in real life is a picture that we've taken where you can see here the first year of the harvest. It was a low year. Then this is the second harvest that we will have. This is the recent blooming that we had in some of our farms in Central America. But you see that the places where the coffee was last year, there's no activation, no floral buds, and there will be no production. And then you see here the new growth of the tissue of this year. That will be the production for the next year's harvest. So that's why it's important to understand the plant physiology and how can you use this concept towards improving your farm management skills. How does this look like in production behavior of a dwarf variety in the ideal life zone conditions? You will see that as soon as you plant the coffee from the nursery, it will be between 1 and 2 years to have your first harvest. That's not going to be the main one, not the strongest one. And then you will see that in 1 year time, if you plant it in the right moment with the right rains, you will see that here is where you have a lot of production. But then what happens with the production trend? You start going low and then a little bit high and then lower and then a little bit high because of this plant physiology and plant structure where the branches don't have now the capacity to grow more new tissue. And then that's where you need to understand this to do a better farm management practice. Jen, feel free if there's any question from the audience on whatever moment, just let me know and we can also go back to that point.
No, for sure. I really love that you touch on that because I know that was a thing I didn't know until I actually visited a coffee farm about the way branches produce. So I think it's always a good one to touch on.
Sure.
But keep it going.
Okay. Now, since we're trying to link coffee plantations with farming as a business, which is our model, we need to understand what is the purpose of any business. And most of you guys in the audience might respond to this. And if I was asking you directly, you will probably say, well, Carlos, it's to make money. And I will say probably you're right. Now, we have called that concept sustainable profitability. What does this mean? It means that you want to make a profit every single year that your business is in place. You don't make a business to start losing money. You make a business hopefully to have it in the long term and also keep on building from it. And that's where the sustainable word comes into play. The sustainability means in the long term, through the long run of your lifespan. So sustainable profitability is profit every single year. In a very easy way to explain this is when the income that you have from your economic activity is higher than the cost that you're having to produce that product or service. If we focus right now on the specific part of income in coffee, you might know that this income has two main variables, which are how much you produce and then the price that you're getting paid for that amount of production. This happens not necessarily only in coffee. This happens if you're selling hats or sunglasses or whatever there is that you're selling. It's how much you produce and how much are you being paid for by that product or service. Now, if we focus on the production side of coffee, you just knew or understood one important concept, which is that production will be based on your capacity to build new branches or to increase the lifespan of the branch on building new tissue. This is the key for us to actually then help the producers to farm as a business. And then the other important aspect that ends up affecting the production is the climate. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know what to say, we cannot control the climate. So there's one important variable that determines the production that we really cannot do much about it, which is this climate. But then the production of the new branches and the new branch capacity, we can do actually something about it. Now, let's jump into the price. If I ask you what will be the variables that affect the price, immediately I know you will say quality is going to be the main driver of the price of whatever product or service you give, and also the market conditions. Again, market conditions is in red because we don't control it, okay? But the quality of the coffee, we can do something about it, okay? So we have already explored the income side of this equation towards improving the sustainable profitability of the business. Now let's focus right now very quickly on the cost. What will be the cost? Will be your labor cost, your input cost, your administrative expenses, your harvest and post-harvest cost. Those things that affect your farm management or how you decide to manage your farm to produce these new branches is going to be the one aspect that it will affect your cost. And that will be basically how efficiently you decide to use your resources. Resources being your time as an entrepreneur, your cash, your soil, and all the environmental conditions that you have as part of resources to produce that really good quality of coffee. Now, in a nutshell, based on what you have already learned and understood, what ends up being Volcafe Way? Volcafe Way is our long-term investment on supply chains that focuses on helping the producer achieve improved productivity that you see here, that by doing so, you can increase the income. Then improving the quality that if you see here, it will also affect the income. And also by helping the families to be more efficient on the resource usage, which you will know that will affect the cost, trying to have always this relation towards having a better income so that this profitability can actually happen every single year. If you see here, this little graph that we have here has a key feature, which is that all the indicators, they touch themselves. So they depend and rely on each other. It's not a normal triangle. You see productivity ends up blending with resource efficiency and with quality. Why is this so? Because a highly productive farm is not necessarily going to be profitable if the cost structure is too high. Or a really good quality cup of excellence winner family is not necessarily going to have profitability because their cost structure could also be too high or their production could be too low. So it's the happy interaction between these three indicators that will help us to have more times than none this income higher than this cost. And this is an important factor that probably for us in the audience here is common and it's clear, but that's not something that is easily achievable or that the coffee families are thinking on. So in a nutshell, Volcafe Way will focus on the social environmental sustainability while helping the producers and the families increase the productivity, improve the quality, and help on the resource efficiency part so that you can achieve this sustainable profitability that we are all wanting and looking for. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, a lot of the roasters that I talk to have heard me say many times, anytime I use the word sustainable, I have to qualify it because I don't know what it means anymore. So thank you for actually giving us context for what sustainable means in this application.
No, for sure, by all means. And it's important to get this concept aligned so that then, based on this, we can keep on building up to the same standard and goal. Now, back in the day when we did our research on why we thought that producers needed Volcafe Way, we got to these 4 main conclusions, which are: most producers don't know their cost of production, nor they keep track of or records of their cost. So imagine you're in a business of selling glasses and you have no clue of what the cost of the glasses are, and you just decide to go and sell them to whatever. How are you going to then keep on building your business if you have no clue of that cost? This happens today in most of the coffee families that we see across the entire world. The other aspect that we see as a challenge is that they have an unbalance on the productive structure, which means that they have very long, very non-productive branches that they are not cutting or stimulating the growth of new tissue. So they don't have this balance, and even though they understand the physiological concept, they are not really aware of how to use it on their favor to increase their production and improve their quality. A lot of the times you will see a lot of families and you will say, hey, why are you doing this practice like that? And they will say, oh, because that's how my father or my grandmother or my great-great-grandmother used to do this. So a lot of farming that we have today is a lot on inheritance farming. So it's not because of what I am doing on learning new technology, is based on what I have been told that works. No wonder why the coffee structure and the coffee park around the world is also having a lot of struggles, because we have been also inheriting not only the good parts of that, but also the bad parts of that. And lastly, and for me, probably the most important challenge that producers had is that most of the coffee field extensionism that is there is not towards doing farming as a business, because the technicians or the agronomists or whoever goes to the field, they also don't have business administration knowledge. So it's not necessarily their fault. It's because when you go and learn these things in the university or wherever, they don't necessarily tell you the nitty-gritty part of the profitability. So if I'm going to want to make a responsible exchange of knowledge, I have to make sure 100% that all my field team members know about agronomy, know about finance, know about business administration, so that they can give you the best possible and most responsible recommendation for your business. This is not, we're not paying for the fertilizer that the producer is going to apply. We're not paying for the bags of coffee that he has to go and buy so that he can collect the cherries. So it's not our wallet that is suffering if we decide to give a bad recommendation. But we understand that we have to make this for the long term, for the business of the producer. We have to give us the best possible recommendation. Let us also say that Volcafe, our company, is also trying to buy that coffee from those producers. Why? Because we also understand that those producers are key for the sustainable profitability of our business as well. So if our supply chain starts slowly dying from the field, we as a business are also going to be at risk. So this is also our way to co-create with them and also to be helping each other in a business-oriented way, so that if I help you, I would expect that you want to sell that coffee to me, and so on and so forth. Now, this new slide, probably all of you guys here in this webinar will relate, probably very easy, so I'll go with this one a little bit faster, which is, if we put ourselves in your shoes as importers or roasters of coffee, what are those challenges that you're expecting or that you're already suffering? You will probably need somebody that will guarantee the quality and volume consistency of the coffees that you're buying. We cannot be changing the cup profile every time. You already have your market base and what they like and what they don't like, so we cannot be changing that part on the sourcing. You would probably need or want a better customer support, such as the one that Jen and Cindy and Jay and Rob are doing for you. You also would probably need a little bit more marketing material, pictures, videos, data, stories of true impact, so that you can market your product in a better way. And also you can show that you care, even though you don't have the boots on the ground. There's a lot of reputational risk, traceability, transparency need on this part of the supply chain. And at the end of the day, you're probably looking for something that makes you more credible, more different, and more unique to any other roaster out there. So we understand those challenges. We've heard those challenges from you directly, and we have tried to also build Volcafe Way in a way that is not only helping the producer, but also helping you as a roaster or any other part of the supply chain that you could be in. In a nutshell, and to finalize this initial part of our conversation, we cannot be, on our view, we cannot be sustainable if we're not profitable. If you think about the farmer, if you think about yourselves, and if you think about our company, what do we have in common? We all are looking for sustainable profitability. The way we achieve this might be a little bit different. We might have different tools to actually make this happen, but at the end of the day, producer, yourself, and us, we want to be here forever, hopefully increasing our business and the impact that our business is having. So if we understand the needs of these different parts of the stakeholders in the supply chain, we then can build a product or service that actually is adding value, creating value for everybody. And we can make a win-win-win-win business model where everybody receives their fair share, but we have to also be empathic to understand what are the challenges and context of the other parts of the supply chain. So based on this hopefully quick introduction that I just did, I want to now show you some of the results of what we did in 2019, just for you guys to have a better understanding on what is it that we're doing and how is it that we're accomplishing it. So
real quick, I'm just going to jump in. I think Rob's going to throw a poll up that'll be open for just a couple of minutes. So roasters, attendees, please click some response that is appropriate. Thank you. Thanks for that intro. I think, you know, a lot of people have heard me say, I don't have a lot of power in this world except where I choose to spend my money.
yes.
So that's what I think about with Volcafe Way.
Yes.
But anyway, 2019 report, let's hear about it.
2019 report. Okay. So Jen and everybody, during the last year, these were some of the numbers that we can share with you about the amount of coffee producers that we have, or coffee families, as we like to call them, that we have already in our Volcafe Way supply chain versus the amount of farmers that we want to still reach out to be able to help with this service platform. So you see, we are all over the Latin American origins. We have Guatemala, Honduras, Costa Rica, Colombia, Peru, and Brazil. And we're also helping or implementing Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. Our supply chain and our origin-based teams have different contexts, but at the end, we need to deliver the same message because it is the same challenges that we are facing across all these countries. So you can see here in a darker green, the bar of the producers that we have serving either in any sustainable supply chain or just part of our database and data system. And then this lighter green graph or part of the chart is the amount of producers that are already actively implementing either all or some of the farm management tools and practices towards sustainable profitability on all the countries. At least that was based on December 31st. We have already added here a new country, which is PNG, Papua New Guinea. And we have now, and we're starting to collect some of the data there to understand the challenges and also hopefully be able to help with the support of the service platform that we have created. Now, another part, which for me is the most important part of our implementation, is our field team. We have around 250 field team members, ranging from agronomists or field technicians, but all of them share the same passion towards helping the coffee producers and families that are on their villages, on their communities, to increase their business capacity so that they can actually have a positive impact on the overall quality of life of the coffee families of that region. And I can tell you this for a fact, because the work that we do in the field, if you're not passionate enough and if you don't really want this, it can be hell. But if that's what you feel your mission in life is, it can be taking you to heaven. And that's what all of these field team members are doing. You see here, and we broke it down by gender composition. This side corresponds to men and this side corresponds to women. It's been agriculture, it's been more a men-based job in the past, but we're trying to break that myth and stigma, and we are also wanting to have more women in our team. And you can see here some of the figures. There's teams that are bigger than others. Probably the supply chains and amount of producers that we need to provide service to are also varying in range of sizes and amounts. So that's also why we have different amount of team members in each country. But this is a little bit of us so that you can get a hold of our happy army of people wanting to have a positive change on the different supply chains. Now, a little bit more numbers. These are all the amount of trainings that we did as a team, not only to help our own team to increase and build more capacity of analytic capacity, of cost of production, of finance, of business administration, but also the trainings that we ended up doing to the coffee families around that country across the entire year. Here you can also see that there's some countries that did more trainings than others based on some were newcomers to the Volcafe Way last year, so they did it really, were just starting when we did this report. And some others were already more mature on the implementation, which is also another important thing that you might want to know is we are trying to be consistent on standardizing how we deliver the services to all the coffee families. But surely you will see that there's countries that are faster on implementation or slower on implementation. All of them have their reasons that we have to understand so that we can also rearrange whatever needs to be done so that we can start boosting the implementation. But it's important for you guys to know that it's not always perfect. It's not always easy. It's not always scratching the belly and waiting for everybody to do what they're supposed to do. There's a lot of work, a lot of follow-up, a lot of effort being done so that we can actually be advancing and having the progress that we're expecting.
I have a quick question about that, and I also want to address a couple slides back. I think there was a typo that we had talked about with the Brazil numbers. So I had someone say, "Wait a minute."
Yeah, we realized that, and based on this feedback that you guys gave us, we changed it so that because this graph was twisted, was the other way around. Now it's proper based on the further analysis that we did. So now it should be reading better. We have about 416 producers in Brazil, out of which 409 are already part of a Volcafe Way membership program.
Thank you. And then just also to follow up on talking about the breakdown of how trainings work and implementation work, people are always curious about East Africa. And I know our presence in Uganda has been very effective, but
yeah.
Could you briefly touch on why we haven't seen the same implementation for other East African countries?
Sure. Okay, so that's a very good question, Jen, and I'll try to go directly to the point, which is in Tanzania, last year they tried to make this change on auction system, and they were requesting everybody to do this commercial procurement of buying and selling through this auction system. We used to have direct access to those families and to those AMCOSes or cooperatives, as they call them. But after these regulations started to be in place, then we were not allowed to provide this service anymore. So that made Tanzania to lag a little bit, not because they wanted, but because that was part of the governmental decision. Just recently, that decision was gotten back to what the normal way was. So now we are going back to the field, we are going back to the trainings, we are going back to following up on all the work that we had just started. Now, obviously, focusing on complying with all the legal regulations of the country. So that's why Tanzania is a little bit lagged. And then in Kenya, if you see in Kenya, we can go back a couple of slides, you see that we don't have a lot of producer-based parts of the sustainability here. And this is mainly because Kenya, because of their commercial system that goes also through auction, makes it also more complex to engage into commercial relationship directly with producers, because always they have to go through the auction unless they have already a direct sale that is already very good, well priced, you know. So that also makes a little bit different the engagement that we can have with those different countries, and also makes the possibility of our impact a little bit reduced, because obviously we also need to not only showcase the value, but also be able to tell that to the roasters so that they can buy from us on those specific supply chains. And on those countries, sometimes it's not as straightforward due to this auction system that helps with the pricing and helps with the market access and helps with the price discovery mechanisms, but sometimes affects the field team work. Was it okay?
Yeah, no, thank you. Sorry, I forgot I had myself muted. Yeah, no, thank you for explaining that.
Okay, now I'll try to speed up because I want to get to the nicest part very soon. So you might be aware or not that we work through what we call business model farms. And business model farms are these families that we go and knock on their door, and we ask them, hey, do you want to be part of this Volcafe Way farming as a business concept? And they say, sure. So we start actively implementing and working with them. Why? Because we've seen that in the coffee regions, the coffee producers tend to not ask each other what are they doing and how they are increasing or improving something. What we've seen is that they tend to go to the fence and start looking and saying, oh, look, Jen is doing this, he's doing that, so I'll go replicate that. So for us to speed up this knowledge transfer, we know we need an example. It's like when you go to buy a house or rent an apartment, you might need this model house or model apartment so that you can understand what are you getting yourself into. These business model farms are the ones that then we open the doors to then exchange this knowledge and transfer this knowledge with an example, a practical example of what we can achieve in a co-management way with the coffee families. Now, the nice thing about this is that business model farms don't stay there. There's also this other concept that we call replica farms. And what is a replica farm? It's a farm that went to the business model farm to be trained. And they said, well, you know, I like that service. I really would enjoy if you can help me out with that. So we then go and support these other replica farmers. And in some of the countries, we already see the trend that we would expect, which is from X amount of business model farms, we can start growing faster on the replica farms, which are the ones having a similar approach on the service, but they're just not the classroom. This is the good student that liked the approach and it's willing to do that with us. So we do a learn by doing with the coffee families, but first showing an example of a good experience. So around the world, you see that we have already about 600 families that are already implementing the Volcafe Way on the farming as a business part, which means that we have already 573 farmers that are, or families that are improving their quality of life based on this improvement on these indicators, which is probably, if you put it into a worldwide map of amount of families, it might be very little on the impact, but it's 600 more families that are living better than 5 years ago around the world. So we expect also this impact to start growing exponentially. We have already proven that our model works, and we're just now looking for more strategic partnerships so that we can safely co-invest with more resources on these communities to then scale up this model.
Hey, Carlos,
yeah.
can I ask you a question? So the business model farms, you go and you knock on the door and you say, I want to make your farm a business model farm. How do you promote? How do you get more farmers to the trainings? How do you get more people interested in becoming replica farms? I mean, it's got to start somewhere. Do you put ads on social or?
Yeah,
I know where I would start. So
yeah. No, that's a very good question, Rob. And in the coffee field, with those families, it's based on the trust that you have earned with those families in the past that leads us to then be able to convince those families that what we're doing is actually going to be positive. The most complex one was the number one, because we really didn't have a lot to showcase because the building was still in the blueprints, right? But with that confidence and trust that we have built with some of these families, they've said, yes, I'll believe in you, and let's see if what you're saying is right. Now, a lot of these first newcomers, they gave us not the entire farm to work with, but a specific site or lot that they had, which normally was the worst productive part of their farm. So they said, well, if they are really for real, they should be able to then showcase their support and effort and improvement here. And if they do that, then I believe in them, and then probably I'll extrapolate whatever knowledge they gave me so that we can do it in the entire business. Similar approach that we've had then with the replica farmers, going there and saying, no, I don't believe you guys are crazy, etc., etc. But then they start seeing the results and they say, well, maybe you guys are right, and please come and do that with us as well.
So it sounds like you have to give them a very low risk proposition in order to get them interested. Say, absolutely no risk to you. And
no, this is an important thing, Rob. We don't charge for this service. It's basically fully on our budget, on our overheads, on our P&L, giving this service to those families. What we are
is there any disbelief when you tell people no charge to you? I mean, it's hard to say there's no strings attached.
Well, since probably 20 or plus years ago, people started giving things away for free in the rural communities. So now there's already like this intrinsic language that they feel that everything needs to be free, just because that's even part of this inheritance that I tell you. Everybody was used to, or a lot of people were used to that. So sometimes it's not a surprise for them. They say, well, yeah, of course, if you want my coffee, you have to give me something back for free. You know, I mean, probably our service is worth a lot more, but what we are again trying to build is this relationship with them so that we can then engage into this commercial aspect and also focus on all these other holistic parts of a human being, on poverty, on profitability, on improving their business. So this is our like foot on the door type of thing. And then once we get into the living room, then we showcase our full approach that ends up adding up to the overall impact that we can create. Okay, so just to give you a quick example, and Jen, you let me know how we are in time, but this is Ever Rivera. He is one of our first families that we provided service to. He's a very young coffee grower in Nariño. And here I can show you the improvements that we have had with them and the reasons why we have been able to improve. So we started with them with his family in 2017. And from 2017 till today, we have helped him, or we as a team have worked together to improve his overall productivity in 17% from the first day that we started till today. And that has been done by implementing what we call a tissue management system, or TMS, which is basically balancing the productive structure. As we saw on the slide of the coffee challenges, this is one of them that we're already improving, and we can see this impact going on. And also we help him on improved fertilization plans. He was basically used to applying fertilizer the same amount to all the plants. And now we know that there's plants that need fertilizer for growth, others that need fertilizer for production, and others that need fertilizer for growth and production. This will depend on how you establish the agronomic program. So by improving the usage of fertilization, we also helped him to increase the productivity. Now,
yeah, and the tissue management stuff should sound familiar. If you were on our Guatemala webinar a couple of weeks ago, we talked a lot about that with Roberto Cardona. So that should ring some bells if you've been hanging out with us for a minute.
Yeah. Now, the cost in the resource efficiency, remember our indicators, always remember our indicators. So in the resource efficiency part, we have helped him reduce the overall cost of his farm management practices in about 15%. How have we helped him? Well, we taught him that there's some more efficient ways to do pruning, to do sucker selection, to do fertilization, to do weed management, so that they can reduce the overall cost of labor. In Colombia, similar to Brazil, similar to Costa Rica, the daily cost of labor is very high compared to Guatemala, compared to Honduras, compared to East Africa. So we need to make sure we understand this cost structure so that we can actually have a positive impact on the biggest percentage of the overall cost. So this is a brief explanation on that part. And then we have helped him increase the overall quality in 6% throughout these years that we have been with him, mostly by reduction on the berry borer, so improving the berry borer management, which is picking all the overall beans that have fallen into the floor. And also, due to having a strong agronomic program, you have normally healthier plants that also bear healthier and more filled up fruits. So that is also going to impact on your plant or your bean size and your bean density and your bean weight, which is at the end of the day, more money that you are going to be collecting. And also by having a better quality, we can also help that coffee grower to access to better markets, such as Genuine Origins, roasting platform that you guys are normally looking for, these very high-end, really good quality cups that are spectacular. And that's exactly what happens when you have a solid agronomic program and good farm management. Lastly, to showcase a little bit of the pictures, this was how Ever's farm used to be before we started helping. And this is his farm today. You see now a stronger condition of plantations, a more healthy branches. Here you can also see a little bit of this tissue management system that we see on the production of the new branches. And we're doing this in block basis. And also we asked Ever if he could also tell us what has he liked a little bit or mostly about Volcafe Way. The overall thing that most of our coffee families tend to tell us is that the indicators really look, you can see the impact on the indicators. So you see the impact on the productivity, and also we are helping on the income diversification. So for example, our planting methodology helps you to have more space between the plants so that here you can plant other crops. Why? Because you can be as profitable as you can on 1 hectare, but would that cash flow give you enough for you and your family to survive the entire year? Probably not. So it's not only profitability, the key is also income diversification. And with the same land, we are also helping them to have other sources of income, and he is also appreciative of that. And now he says, I'm not a coffee farmer anymore. I am now a business person. I'm an entrepreneur. And he starts seeing the farming as a business perspective.
Hey, Carlos, can I jump in with a quick question?
Sure.
So this producer was with Volcafe, started with Volcafe Way in 2017.
Yeah.
Do you know approximately how much effort went into bringing this farmer around? I mean, that transformation, the picture is just,
yeah,
before and after
yeah.
picture is amazing.
Yeah.
What kind of effort did Volcafe Way have to put in to make that happen?
So with Everett, you can relate to this story as love at first sight type of approach, bearing the differences, but we clicked from the get-go. So he's a young farmer, which tends to be a little bit more or has a different mindset than older coffee growers. We also have examples of coffee growers of 70 plus years old that have also accomplished this. But with Everett, it was like, sure, that makes sense. Sure, that makes sense. So everything that we were saying says, well, that's common sense. How come I have not been applying this yet? So it was kind of straightforward. He didn't do it in all his plantation, to be very honest, at the very beginning. But once he started seeing the positive impact, not only on the visual that you're seeing here, but on the pocket, he started saying, no, yeah, if I could handle this, I can do that in a more exponential base. So he ended up getting convinced based on the results, and it was very nice to get to know him, and also for him to open the door to us.
So about how many times does your team visit Everett?
Okay, so if you're part of a business model farm program, you will get at least 1 to 2 visits per month. Okay. Now, those are not 8-hour visits. You have to just cut to the chase, go to the point. So in what part of the year are we? Oh, we need to be selecting the suckers. Okay, so let's make sure that we check that specific part. We're not going to talk about harvest. We're not going to talk about personal protective equipment because we're not on that part of the year. So we go
surgical approach.
Yes, so it's very pragmatic, and it's not long hours that we know also exhaust the people. And we have to also be responsible with their time and how we can also scale. So we tend to visit once or twice per month based on the coffee calendar year, and based on what they need us to check on.
Mm-hmm. And can I just ask a follow-up to that?
Sure.
Obviously, here in the States, we've been experiencing COVID, and a lot of the states have been locked down to varying degrees. I know I've seen communications from you about COVID, and recently I've started to see posts on your Instagram feed about, with your technicians with masks on going to visit farmers. I mean, these farmers still need help, and these farmers are still producing, and this is, the earth is pushing out coffee. Like, what are you doing to keep your people safe, and what are you doing to keep your technicians producing and helping producers become more sustainably profitable?
Sure. That's also a very good question, Rob, and it touches all fronts of the supply chain. What we are fixed on is to make sure that our team is healthy, that our team is safe, and that we're not going to be spreading the virus on the coffee community. So first, we follow these rigid protocols that have been given by each local government so that we can protect ourselves. The main issue here is that a lot of these families that we're providing service, they are not yet fully ready to take over the program by themselves. So we have not yet graduated them. they're still in the learning phase. So that makes it crucial that you are in that place in the right moment to do the right recommendation. So that said, these 70 plus days that we have been locked down, we have been calling and we have been asking the producers that can to give us videos or pictures of what's going on so that we can try to guide them. But as soon as we have been able to go, we have gotten with our protective equipment to the field to make sure that this goes on. As you probably are aware, not all the coffee year of all the countries is the same. So right now, Brazil, Peru, Colombia, we are harvesting. But Costa Rica, Honduras, Guatemala, and some parts of East Africa, we are in the sucker selection or pruning or planting phase. So we have to be ready to tackle all those challenges. And there's never a same day, but we have to have these protocols in place. So we have tried to help, and also we have partnered with some roasters to help the coffee communities. There's a nice case in Peru where the producers, they didn't have the income yet because they were just starting to harvest. So we helped them with some basic food for the needs of the family to cover a couple of weeks time for a 4-people family. We are also helping to subsidize some of the transport cost because now there's some internal regulations on each village that won't allow you to go and procure the coffee because obviously for security reasons, you might be bringing the virus to the community. So we are now paying for that coffee to come to our buying station. So we are trying to subsidize a little bit of that cost. And we're also giving away some personal protective kits. So some alcohol in gel and some other features that are also helping to reduce the spread of the virus so that we can also have our activity as safe as possible and also have the least negative impact on throughout these years. Now, we tend to travel a lot to those coffee communities. So my team goes all around the year to all these countries. Now that we cannot do this because of the travel ban, we are adapting the technology and we are having all these sorts of exchanges as much as we can to follow up properly in the most responsible way, knowing that it's never the same as going, but you can actually tackle the most important aspects.
Thank you, Carlos. We've got about 5 minutes left, so I want to touch on something about. You mentioned, I love this, like making sure we're productive with producers' time, which I know is the same way we approach our roasters. We want to be productive with everyone's time. So what does it mean when a roaster buys a Volcafe Way coffee through Genuine Origin? What is that contributing to, and how do they make sure that they're contributing to that sustainable profitability?
Okay, so Jen, depending on the region that we are sourcing, you can expect that that coffee farmer or family or community lot has been trained on how to capture the cost of production. We have given them material and we have given them, at least we do 1 visit per farm per year to do a social and environmental follow-up, plus the trainings that we do either individually or in group so that we can start seeing the results. Now, we have also invested a lot on a big technological platform so that we can also capture this information with an app. The app works fully offline and we can go to every farm and we can start checking on the specific indicators. We can take pictures. We can have a full digital file of what's going on so that we can also be assessing the progress and also measuring the risks of that community so that when we do the trainings, we can try to cover those specific risks that we have identified and analyzed as a whole in the community. Now, we can also offer price transparency. We can also offer traceability depending if you're buying an estate coffee or if you're buying a community lot. We can also provide where this coffee is coming from in overview, and also we can share some of the data of the cost of production or the average age of the family or the altitude or the varietals. So we're also capturing this massive amount of data that is also focused on the true impact that we're trying to assess. So that there's a lot of sharing of information that we can do and also engaging into very positive discussions, because we believe that sometimes the story that the final consumer gets told is not necessarily the same story of the true challenges that are happening actually in the field. So if we want to create a more conscious market-based demand, we have to be able to transfer this knowledge and tell the story as it is, so that when you're buying this delicious coffee of wherever you are, you understand how that purchasing that you're doing is helping the overall improvement of the schemes of that community or that specific family. I know it sounds cliche, and I know everybody claims to do the same, but we're open to be sharing the results or the images or whatever there is. And hopefully on the origin trips that you guys constantly do, hopefully they have been able to see that this is not just showing you always the same farm and telling you always the same story, but actually seeing that this is making some progress. It's not an easy thing, and that's why we cannot scale up so easy or fast as we would like, but we can ensure that the families that are part of the program are actually being benefited on several fronts.
Yeah, actually, we just started posting the results from Guatemala to our latest community lots and the La Morena lot. So Roberto Cardona sent me the results after our last webinar, and those are now posted on our website. If you go to any of those coffees, Cabulco, San Vicente Pacaya, Candelaria, and La Morena all have Volcafe Way cards attached to them, so you can see the results of the program on those community lots, and hopefully we can integrate more of those. Also, for those of you who answered the poll, obviously all of those that I just mentioned are coffees that are Volcafe Way coffees: Cabulco, Candelaria, San Vicente Pacaya, La Morena, also Guamadanta, Sitio do Turbo. All the coffees on the list were Volcafe Way coffees, except for Yirgacheffe washed Morda Cafe, and that's by actually an extremely sustainable producer in Ethiopia. But that one was the only one that was not a Volcafe Way participating coffee. Yeah, and I'm also going to launch the next poll.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah, I was going to say, if you were on my Instagram cupping a couple of weeks ago, I cupped that Mordekov and talked a bit about Haile, the producer that did that. So we're going to wrap up. And Carlos, thank you so much for your time. We would love to keep up with you throughout the year and be able to share more of these conversations. I know it was a big draw for me when I was interested in a position at Genuine Origin. Volcafe Way was a huge part of that. And I know that's important to a lot of our roasters as well. And we want to keep up with that. So stay tuned for our Costa Rica webinar coming up June 18th. I know people are really excited about that because we have so much cool stuff coming from Costa Rica that's going to be arriving in the coming weeks. Anaerobico, Termico, Lorena, honey, natural, some Monte Alto. So I'll be cupping a few of those on Instagram on Tuesday, and the Guatemalas won't be far behind. So stay in touch with all of us, with Jay, Cindy, Rob, myself, and what are our Instagram handles? Well, I cup on the Genuine Origin Instagram, but I am also at Jennifer Hurd. Volcafe Way has an Instagram, Genuine Origin. Chagolani in Uganda. Guatemala has our Volcafe Guatemala Instagram is really great. So if you follow the Genuine Origin Instagram, you'll be able to find everybody else. That's my recommendation. But we're just really excited to continue being a part of Volcafe Way. So
yeah. At volcafeway.com, at Volcafe Way is the Instagram handle for Volcafe Way. It's amazing feed. Highly recommend it. Sometimes I snatch their photos and post them on Genuine Origin because they're so good. Yeah. So definitely follow them.
Yeah.
And we're really proud of that work. So and by buying those coffees, you can continue to be a part of that process. So
another quick disclaimer, Jen, I'm sorry to interrupt, is that we can also partner with your roasters, and we can also do some specific projects or even help with their brand value or take pictures with their logo on a specific coffee plantation. I mean, we've done nurseries with some of your roaster partners. We've done so many things that can also help build your brand value. I've seen a lot of the Instagram accounts of roasters, and it's always nice. You have the classic latte art and all that, but you can still probably benefit from having more dirt and more green and more lost on what's going on, and actually focusing on helping a program that is actually doing something different. So it's
a really great opportunity to continue to educate consumers.
Yeah.
And enlighten people on how many hands touch their coffee and that we need to pay for it. So yeah. I won't go on that rant, I promise. But really just a huge thank you to everybody for joining us. We always like hanging out. If you missed any of our other webinars, they are up on our YouTube channel. Highly recommend checking them out. There's some great stories and info to gather from that. On that note, join us Tuesday for a cupping. Join us June 18th for another webinar. So thanks, y'all. Have a good one.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.